if you think about the AI that most teams are using today, a lot of the time it's either what vendors have sort of built directly into the platform, or you are getting a lot of spillover where people are manually copying things out into a big AI service like Claude or ChatGPT. So as soon as you want something a bit more specific, a bit more ad hoc, maybe, you start to see maybe some limitations around what can be built into a platform. And manual copying of data is obviously, a potential security and control issue. Not to mention it's just a bit inefficient and fragmented in terms of that workflow and the data control. So over the past year, NetSuite's made it possible to connect external AI platforms directly into the system data. So instead of the AI sort of sitting alongside those tools, you can plug it straight in. So the NetSuite AI Connector is basically giving AI platforms like Claude or ChatGPT just a secure and standardized way to work with your NetSuite environment and your NetSuite data. It's using MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. It's basically an open standard that lets NetSuite expose different tools and capabilities to the AI service in a way that it can understand and work with. So with NetSuite, you're exposing things like records and saved searches and reports in a way that something like Claude can work with without sort of leaving a conversation. So I'll show you a couple of quick examples of what that can do. A really common one that we might see is getting asked to look into expenses. So without AI, typically you might jump into a dashboard. I'm going to start filtering, trying to work out what's changed, what cost centers are driving it, whether it's a once-off or it's consistent. And then once you've figured that out, you've got to turn it into something useful, a bit of commentary or maybe some slides or something you can use to actually communicate what you've found to the business. So what I'll show here is, taking the financial data from the real finance system and then analyzing what's happening and turning it into something usable straight away. So this is Claude, and I'm using that MCP connector to connect to my account for Catalyst Medical, which is a medical supplies company that I made up. And here's my prompt to Claude. So I'm saying, analyze my expenses across these different periods, create me a visual dashboard, tell me what's trending, what requires attention, what are some key opportunities in that. And then I've generated this dashboard. So I can see key expense comparisons by category, year on year. But then importantly, I can see our key callouts. So I've got critical issues in my data. I've got unusual trends there, specifically for a medical supplies company that it's comparing to actual market data. So for example, market spend is lower than you'd expect. There's zero explicit R&D listed there. And then in key opportunities, it's telling me I've got IT and telecom contracts spread out across a bunch of different vendors that I could save money by consolidating, or I've got a whole lot of cost in my travel and expense policy that I could consider limiting with a tighter policy there. So I might look at that, say, yeah, that's great. I'm going to take some of that advice. I like the last 3 lines. And I've turned around and said, turn this into a presentation deck for me that I want to present internally. And it's done that. It's even taking automatic brand guiding from a brand guide that I've already uploaded. And at the end of that, I've got a PowerPoint presentation with those points that's fully formatted and ready for me to present to the business. So one other thing I'd call out there is it's possible to write into NetSuite there, not just sort of read and interpret. So as another quick example, I've asked Claude to scan in NetSuite for customers that have previously heavy activity and they haven't bought from us recently. So I've said, pick the top 2, suggest 2 items that they might be interested in, suggest a little pitch for me and create a follow-up task with that pitch in NetSuite against those customers. So this is another one where I might historically have been pulling multiple reports to try and consolidate that information for myself, right? And then manually creating actions. And it's gone ahead and done that for me automatically. It's identified JB Electronics and Macquarie, suggested some pitches to me, created tasks. And I might say, look, we're really trying to shift these, particular probes and I think I've got a really good chance of selling them to Macquarie. So tell me how many they've usually bought in the past, and then create an opportunity at a 10% discount in my NetSuite system so I can follow that up. And if I look down here, that's exactly what it's done, and it gives me a summary of what it's already done. And one other thing that I do think actually is worth calling out about this as well is there are a whole bunch of off-the-shelf connectors to other platforms. So you can really use this as a hub between multiple systems. So I've connected Slack, and that means people can enter order requests in natural language directly into a Slack channel, and I can ask Claude to go create those orders in NetSuite. I've even done it sometimes with handwritten notes that are attached. So someone's typed into the Slack chat, for example, Sun Life want to order 1 ultrasound unit, and this is picking that up. It's looking up the customer records, mapping the items, the pricing, etc. It might, based on my prompts, come back to me for some clarifications on things that it wants to fill out on those orders, and then it's gone ahead and created those straight into my NetSuite account based on those prompts. So just a couple of very quick examples there, but hopefully it gives you some sense of the beginnings of what that could do. I have this feature that's available now in the NetSuite platform called Narrative Insights. So that's basically available in a whole lot of different NetSuite records and reports, and it does basically what it sounds like. It provides natural language summaries and narrative insights based on your NetSuite data. So if I look at, say, an AR aging report, I can click on Generate Insight on that, and what I get is basically a natural language breakdown. So with some key risks, accounts identified, and then recommendations for follow-up on that. Or if I look at, say, another example, I'm looking at a backorder report. Inventory reports are typically a really good one because I might have a big long list of numbers that can be quite hard to read in this format. So if I click on Narrative Insights, I'm then getting something that's telling me the main items that I need to be looking out for, the major impacted customers, and again, some key takeaways. So it's going to suggest that I review the backorder quantities here for the warming block unit, where I've got a big opportunity there, and paying close attention to specific heavily impacted key customers. Or I could look at individual records. So like customers or items. If I look at country energy, I can again sort of get a nice natural language summary of the status of that customer that suggests maybe that they've got nice reliable payment practices, there's a lot of heavy communication engagement, summarizing key activities that they might have in progress. So just a really quick look at just one of the native AI features that NetSuite's currently built in.